Hey everyone, it's Hill and Jeff, and we're here to give you a little grudge match of Bionic Commando and Bionic Commando Rearmed. And even though, you know, the old game is in 2D and the new game is in 3D, they were made by the same developer.
Right. Grin basically took the ball and ran with it on both titles, deciding that they were going to put their stamp on the classic franchise.
So first of all, the story. Let's say Bionic Commando Rearmed is a very simple tale, to put it mildly, and you know the story elements aren't a big part of anything that's happening. Grin actually did try to readapt some elements of the story and add some things in there that would kind of lead into the 3D version of Bionic Commando, but honestly, the story's sort of second place in the game. It really doesn't have too much significance or importance.
But the new Bionic Commando does this whole setup where, you know, Spencer's pulled out of essential retirement because he's on death row because a group of terrorists called BioRain have set off a radioactive device in Ascension City, which has pretty much devastated the entire place. You know, it does what it does. It tries to do what it can, and some people will like it, some people won't.
Well, I'm going to say straight out that the new Bionic Commando story is dumb and that the plot twists are stupid. And for that reason alone, I have to give the edge personally in the story department to Bionic Commando Rearmed, because while it doesn't have a lot of story elements to it, there are no parts of the story where I wanted to throw down the controller in disgust and just walk away because it was so stupid. Even though you're playing as the same character, Nathan Rad Spencer, it's been 10 years in the story between the two, and so the 3D version has dreadlocks and he's buffed out and he's sort of badass, whereas the original version is just sort of a dude with like reddish hair, and he kind of looks like a bit like a punk.
Totally, he's crop top. It's basically like straight military guy versus jail Spencer, who's gone completely Rastafarian. And fortunately, in the new Bionic Commando, you can swap costumes, so you can actually go back to the old school Spencer, who's been cleaned up, has the closely shaved hair, and make your way through the adventure that way if you have like some of the saves or a code from Rearmed.
And you need that versatility because, let's face it, dreadlocks don't make you look cool, they make you look dumb. Now, of course, with Bionic Commando, the big feature for both games is the fact that you have this bionic arm. And with Rearm, they did do some cool stuff. You know, you can actually knock bullets out of the air with the arm. You know, you can pick up barrels and throw them at people. Of course, you can do all the cool swinging techniques. And you can do some good stuff with it too in the new Bionic Commando.
Yeah, I think pretty much the new Bionic Commando really took the concept of the arm and really expanded on it. I mean, not only can you do most of those things with the exception of deflecting bullets, but you know, you can basically pick guys up and suspend them in the air and either use them to toss into other people, other objects. You can shoot them while they're suspended. You can slam things into the ground. You can use it to actually whip in a radial sense 360 degrees around you and clear out a large amount of enemies. Like, a lot of the elements of the arm have been vastly improved and expanded upon, which gives you a lot more flexibility in combat.
So both games feature some big boss battles. That's, I think, sort of one of the center points of the Bionic Commando franchise, just having these cool boss battles. For me, Bionic Commando Rearmed, actually Grin did a great thing of going back in and retooling a lot of the boss battles from the NES classic version, and they made them a lot better. Every battle that you fight with a boss in Rearmed is really all about your arm.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And for the new Bionic Commando, a large amount of the focus with the boss battles was not only taking into account the size and the scope of the battles themselves as well as the environment, but then what exactly you chose to do to figure out exactly how you wanted to defeat enemies.
That's really my problem with the new Bionic Commando. The two biggest boss battles are ones where swinging is not involved at all. To me, that doesn't make any design sense whatsoever. So the last thing that the Bionic Commando series is known for is for its difficulty. Now, I should say the original Bionic Commando in the arcade and on NES was known as probably one of the top 5 most difficult games of its generation. To beat it was considered a major accomplishment.
Yeah, badge of honor.
Exactly. And they did actually make Bionic Commando Rearmed for XBLA and PSN a little bit easier and more manageable to beat, but it's still a very difficult game.
Yeah, that's true. And the new Bionic Commando has 3 separate difficulty levels. And basically, once you start getting onto some of the harder ones, like Commando, you're finding that you're getting, like, you know, one-hit kills for certain bosses or certain enemies. Your tolerance and your regeneration goes a lot slower. So you actually have a challenge, especially when you get into areas where there's, like, 8 guys, and you have to figure out exactly how you're going to take them out, which weapon you're going to use, are you going to use the arm, things like that to actually survive.
My only issue really with the new Bionic Commando in terms of difficulty is that I did feel that sometimes they made the environment more difficult than it was meant to be, and that is that there's a lot of areas in the city that are irradiated and they kind of have a blue hue to them, and if you swing towards them, you see a radiation warning, and in a few seconds you'll die if you don't get out of the way. The problem is that there are a lot of areas where you can't actually tell what's irradiated and what's not.
The fact that you have the specter of radiation coating the entire world is almost like a level design cop-out, but it's also in some ways almost like, again, a throwback to classic gaming where it's like, you can't go this way because there's an invisible wall here, and it feels like Grin really decided to try to embody a lot of what those classic games were, but just throwing it into the 3D era.
Well, in Bionic Commando Rearmed, the environment is a major enemy for you because there are spikes everywhere.
Right.
I think the difference is that you can clearly identify all the trouble areas where it's not necessarily always clear in the new Bionic Commando. So that's our look at Bionic Commando versus Bionic Commando Rearmed. For my money, I'd say Bionic Commando Rearmed is the better game. I actually think that it does have better, more interesting uses of the arm that actually work better. I think the level design is better, and I think the difficulty is actually more consistent throughout.
And I think that the new Bionic Commando, while it's got a few issues as far as just like, you know, some of the story presentation elements, some of the environmental situations, and some of the boss elements, it really feels like they're trying to take the old classic way of making a game, bringing it up to the 3D era, and then giving you completely new tools and say, okay, here you go, explore the environment, have fun, but make sure that you make it right the first time through.